Start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Bono?
Here.
Albrecht?
Here.
Clues?
Here.
Scarano?
Here.
Ricky? Here. Wernzak?
Here.
Gorecki?
And did let us know she'll be about a half an hour late this morning.
All right, we have a quorum present. Mission statement, John, you want to read that?
Sure. The Herkimer County Industrial Development Agency delivers economic incentives to businesses and industry to diversify and strengthen Herkimer County's tax base and enhance community vitality by supporting job creation, business and industrial development, and community revitalization. We strive to develop the local economy in an organized, sustainable, and environmentally beneficial manner.
Item number 4 is the Feldmeyer project, and we have Kevin Coughlin here.
But I think we're going to refer to Tony first to see how you would like us to proceed with that.
I would like Kevin to go ahead and discuss that, and anything we have to say, I'll address after that in executive session.
Oh, okay, great.
You'll correct me if everything I do wrong. Good morning, members of the board, Chairman.
Good morning.
Morning, all. So I'm here today as a follow-up to our prior meeting. Seek your final inducement resolution. A couple of things transpired between the last meeting and this one. We've had a series of meetings with the mayor of the city of Little Falls and the assessor, and worked on agreed values for the assessment of the existing Riverside Drive facility, as well as a value for the expansion. And needless to say, we went back and forth. It was a negotiating session. We've had a number of meetings. We looked at really what the fair market value was. And I think in retrospect, Feldmeyer has probably been paying way over fair market value for their existing structure on Riverside. You know, it was assessed for 3.9 million, or I should say the fair market value, which was a 16.5 equalization rate in the city of Little Falls. But the building was assessed for of 3.9 million, which we couldn't sell it for. Well, that was the original cost, but in the manufacturing context, you know, a building is like any other piece of equipment. You don't build it thinking about what your resale value is going to be. It's not like looking at a house saying, can I get my money out of it? It's a tool like anything else that we use. And the same thing holds true for the expansion. So while we're going to spend somewhere between 9 and 10 million on the expansion, and that changes every single day, that's not really the fair market value of it. Should we turn around and sell? You know, collectively, if you took the city's position of cost on it, we would have almost $14 million in the building, and there's no way we could sell that building once expanded for $14 million on Riverside. So we agreed with the mayor that the value for the expansion would be 4.2 million, which would, on today's current equalization rate, result in an assessment for the addition of 700,000. And we agreed that we're going to pay one more year under the existing pilot at the current assessment. Again, what we're trying to do is balance the mayor's need for cash in the community. So what we didn't want to do is, even though we said, look, we're paying way over on our current building, we looked at when the new building would come online and when the reductions would take place under the existing pilot. So we'll have overlapping pilots. And quite frankly, we looked at what the cash flow was and worked it out. So we said, all right, the deal is then we'll pay for in 2022 at the higher 3.9 million on the existing building. And then after that, they will lower it to the new agreed upon fair market value assessment of 300,000, which is a 1.8 million fair market value. And then the 700,000 assessed value can be layered into the new pilot that's created by Mr. Halleck as he moves forward. I think the other thing I'd like to address is our labor situation, employment.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
As far as, is that, I mean, you do a lot of pilots. You're
Yes.
very familiar with them. I mean, for a company to spend 10 million, but they're gonna say valued at less than half of it,
Yep.
seems extreme.
Well, it all depends upon a number of different
And
things.
I live in Little Falls. I would think it's worth 20 million. How's that? No. It's a boom, and they have awesome citizens like Mr. Scarano and I that live there. It's
How are your welding skills?
Oh, I'm good at giving orders.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. It's not uncommon in manufacturing and industrial for the building to be assessed. Because remember, the concept in assessment in New York is what is the fair market value? In other words, what would a third party who has nothing to do with this transaction pay for that building? And both the existing building and the addition are just going to be steel frame buildings, the steel clad on the outside. The only thing fancy about them is they'll have overhead cranes in order to lift up these tanks and move them around the plant. That's it for, specialties, if you will. I think the best example of what I'm familiar with is I represented Global Foundries in Saratoga. All right, we admitted that the first building cost about $2.1 billion. But when we went through what the fair market value of it was, we set up a pilot that was based upon square footage of clean room and other things. And if you worked it backward then to what was paid, it came out to about 475 million, 500 million, something like that. And again, so you say, well, how can something you pay 10 million for in this case only be worth 4.8? It's just like a tool, it's just like fancy welder or something else. We're going to use it and it's great for us, but is the next person going to come along and pay $10 million for that addition? And if you add it together with the existing building, no one's going to go pay 14 million if you took the city's whole numbers. I don't think there's anything in, and I went through all these.
I know it's hard because you're kind of comparing a real estate, and you look and you say with that fair market value versus who's going to come in and buy a structure.
Exactly.
It's a limited clientele. That's
Exactly.
gonna do that, but it's
Exactly.
still 10 million of steel.
We actually had it.
And that's not 10 million of steel
Or, all right, 10 million of building.
and labor.
In Frankfurt, there's the old AAR building that has still the two cranes in it. And the gentleman who bought that makes PPE equipment, gallons and masks. He doesn't even need that, but he bought it for the space. So, it'll be a little different down there. Now, we all realize that there's one structure in existence, and then when you're looking at the structure off to the left, that's where the increase will go. So it'll still be in that property down there. So, on Riverside.
But I think the other thing to take into consideration when you're trying to get your assessments lowered, you got to look at the other businesses in the area where now in Little Falls are going to say, well, look what you did for them. So, I mean, it's, it's kind of a chain reaction thing, I'm sure.
Absolutely, and that's why what we did was we created a spreadsheet that looked at what the net amount was to the city, the county, and the school, so that we didn't have a dip. And at one point in time, the mayor came up with a different proposal, and I said, well, that's going to cost you $40,000 in 2022. Where are you going to make up the $40,000 differential? And he said, oh, I see what you mean. And I admitted to him, I said, look, my spreadsheet is in a sense result oriented. Yes, I had targets that we wanted for fair market value, but I didn't finalize the numbers until I looked at what it was going to do to your budget and where you're going to have an ever increasing amount of money. That was the idea.
Bottom line, we want the expansion. We want you to stay
Right.
here. We want business.
Before Mohawk Medical made any decision down there too, they went and paused their assessment as well and got that lowered considerably down there too.
Right. And quite frankly, the reason that we sat down and did this was it's so much better for both sides if you sit down and negotiate rather than us wait until next spring, drop a grievance on them for the taxes, Yes, we'd be paying at the current rate for then all 2022, but in the meantime, then we go to court, we wait 3 years, we overpay, then they got to go find a refund. I mean, I do this all day long. The worst part about our system is most taxing jurisdictions don't have the money for the refund when it comes due in 4 or 5 years. And so then all the other taxpayers get hammered as they have to go out and bond for it and now pay the debt service on the bond. No, except we had a number of meetings, some of them at City Hall, some of them at the East Mill Street facility. We have multiple versions of the spreadsheet. We went back and forth and thought it'd be best to try and get it worked out before we came here.
Like I add that the way that Kevin did this is the way that I love to see people do it, because under our pilot, they always have the right to go in and grieve. This way, everybody knows up front. Unlike Mohawk Medical, we didn't find out until after the fact, which made it a little more difficult. You know, we've already put our incentives in place. At the end of the day, the city sets the assessment. All we do is approve the eligibility and the percentage. So if the city's happy with the assessment, I don't see what our objection is.
Well, John, what does this mean to the idea? What does this mean to the idea?
Oh, well, we have another discussion about the project, but we're from what I've seen, everything except for one issue that we're having, it's definitely a win-win for everybody. I would like to, you know, the other thing that Kevin hasn't mentioned, but he might mention, is that they're retaining that current building at Mill Street. Back 2 years ago when we had these discussions, they were going to move out of Mill Street. So we're very excited they're keeping that on the full tax rolls. So that's, I don't know if you've changed their assessment down there, but that's not an issue we have to deal with. But it's an excellent structure too. So I'm excited that they're staying and they're trying to grow. They were at Karen, your job fair the other day. I mean, they're always at job fairs. They're always looking to hire people, so.
Well, with that note, I'll
Jimmy did
segue
well,
right
by the
on to
way.
the, you know, the employment situation. So when we applied in 2013 for the Riverside facility, the current total employment in the area then was 160. And we said we were going to create 40 jobs, and somehow down below that added up to 210. So obviously we're not great at math in our law firm. But we said we were going to create 40 new jobs. And somehow people within Feldmeyer, John and Tony have told me the state says we've created 7 jobs. 8. Okay, great. I have no idea. I will be on the phone later finding out who's filling out these reports. But the numbers are as follows. And we measure East Mill Street and Riverside collectively because people go back and forth. They're both fabrication facilities requiring welders, engineers, and other things.
Do you recall if that was part of that application that you stated that it would be for both?
Oh, I absolutely,
Okay,
because
that's great.
yes, right on that employment line, on here, it says at Little Falls locations, and then it says in Herkimer County, the numbers of employees. So it wasn't at Riverside versus East Mill.
Yeah, no.
Because we knew that they would go back and forth on any given time. And from a payroll perspective, you know, we don't have a payroll for Riverside versus East Mill. We have a payroll for Little Falls. That's it. So at the end of 2019, we were at about 201 jobs. In 2020, we lost 52, hired back 25, and the numbers change all the time. When I was here 2 weeks ago in Little Falls, it was 186 on site. One of the, as I talked about at the first meeting, not knowing that this was going to be an issue, part of this expansion is a lot of automation. That is things that will do things like welding and cutting, simply because we have had such a hard time filling those vacancies and keeping those jobs. I mean, we're not back to where we were at the end of 2019, even with the hires and the job fairs and everything else. Cannot get people to stay there. So I don't know why. I'll find out what reports. Somebody may have just segregated Riverside from
It's a
you know.
report that I believe the numbers are turned in from your company.
Oh, I don't,
So it's not.
not
that,
doubting
You
that.
know, nothing's adjusted.
Right.
But we have to follow rules as well. And that would be, you know, my only concern is if they come back and ask about a project like that. However, we looked at ESD, did not question any of your employment to give you another grant, which I found quite unique.
Right.
And so I think, and we don't want you to take this operation or the addition and put it on in Syracuse or any other part of the country. We think it's important that it stays here to continue with the great people of Little Falls. So I wasn't being funny. I like it down there. So, and I think that's a good site. I really do. And I think you're utilizing that property wisely, you know, and I think it'll fit and tie in because we had a great tour from Dave Pollock the other day. And it's good to see what's happening.
The assessment on the properties, and it's a pile of them on East Mill Street, is a fair market value of $5 million. So I'm authorized to put a real estate commission offer out there. We'll give somebody a third if they can sell it for $5 million. But no, you know,
Challenge taken.
okay. So those are the only open issues that I had, was the labor count and what we did with the real property tax. And glad to answer any other question.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. We'll hold off on that resolution till the end.
Just before you leave, does anybody else have questions for Kevin about Feldmeyer or what they're doing across the board?
No, I thought they were gonna talk about a pilot.
We are.
That hasn't.
Kevin has the pilot as part of the project agreement, and I haven't had any comments back on it yet. Maybe I'm not going to get any.
No, they're fine.
Okay, fine. So other than plugging in some numbers to it now, I think we're in good shape. The pilot's going to be there are 3 years left on the old. We'll finish that out of the percentages. And on the addition, it's going to be the standard 10-year with the graduating 5% per year, starting at 50%. And it'll be based upon the assessments with the city. The only thing that I'm going to do in conjunction with Stacy is before we sign that document, to make sure the number is plugged in. So Stacy's not calling me in 12 months, but she wants to send the bills out. So multiple parcels, and there's improvement on one. Just making sure.
I know it's not his call, but was there discussion with Mayor Blast about the pilot? Because that's, he's obviously on the assess side, they kind of get hit, and then the pilot, they get hit. But I just was wondering if all parties have discussed the pilot with the mayor.
Yeah.
All right.
And I should clarify one thing too, that I was not aware that you changed your pilot schedule. So my conversations with the mayor had much higher exemption amounts than the spreadsheet now that I have. I've shared with John and with Tony. So I was working off your old 66%.
That was a unique pilot we put in.
Was that when you did it, the other Feldmeyer?
It's not
When
a
you came,
standard.
you've been here before.
Yes.
And you came for the other Feldmeyer, right? It's in the park, but I thought that was a negotiated one-time type
It is. And
deal.
now we're back to the normal pilot.
Right. And so I was not aware of that. So the mayor is actually thinking he's getting less revenue than will occur under this pilot, because I had used the old exemption schedule, which starts off at 66 2/3 for the first 5 years and then 33 1/3. This pilot, actually using the exact same numbers that the mayor agreed upon, is going to produce $530,000 more in payments over the life of the pilot. So he'll be pleasantly surprised when he sees the difference.
We need that with them.
Anyone else? Questions for Kevin? Kevin, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll hold off on that resolution till the end.
I will.
Item number 5, preliminary, but I would call it finance. We need a. Anyway. The
future year 2022 budget is in front of you. It's a very preliminary budget right now. It's on page 1. And if you want to discuss this or just
Well,
FYI,
well, no, there's things we're gonna have to vote on today. So we're definitely gonna have to submit this. They're gonna ask for this at the county for next month. I do want to go in executive session over salary and wages because we are gonna still put in there the additional person, and I want to talk to you about that, personnel matters. Above, we did project fees, and we're basing that on projects that we've induced for so far and what we see happening for next year. Just kind of like, it's like last year. It's kind of a crapshoot still when you look at some of these projects, whether even after inducement, if they move ahead with them, but like out of the blue, we received the Feldmeyer one. We didn't think it was going to happen this year, where they want to move ahead with it this year. We haven't increased anything. We're still going to go to the county and ask for our standard $200,000, which is in the top 2 lines. You see some slight increases, but you also see more. We kept travel still at 20, even though we didn't touch it for this past year. Marketing and advertising, we came down a lot because of we already did the website. Is there any numbers on any of this that are jumping out at anybody that they'd like to have a ready
So,
to?
John, what might be easier, I know it's probably here, I know, but like when you put 2021, and we're looking at 2022, maybe you could put here, expense to date or income to date, so that, say, I can get an idea that,
How close we are to budget?
yeah, we're saying we're 10 months into it, and we've only spent $10,000, why are we going to 30,000, that kind of thing. In other words, you have another column which says to date, to, what are we,
Well,
August?
90% of this we have spent because there are things that we've had to have done no matter
I
what.
understand.
The computers is one issue that we kept at the same, just for some enhancements and things we'll need to do with software. Travel, we kept at the same, even though we barely touched it because of COVID. So we have to look at that number in the 2021 because of COVID. Insurance, some of these go up a little. Our legal fees, we put them up to 41, even though we budgeted 30 in 2021. We didn't have as much for Block and Bush because we paid pretty much that the year before. Property maintenance, we're kind of keeping at the same. We're hoping to remove some of these properties before we have to do any additional maintenance on. We're pretty confident in that. Health insurance for retirees, we're going to really review that again this time. We found a couple other sources, so we'll be switching that off. Payroll expense goes up. We know that. Salaries and wages, we're looking at an increase there. We're asking for your support for that. Miscellaneous, we kind of kept around the same amount. So there's, there really isn't a huge jump in anything on what you see here.
you want to say those executive for the end, or you
Well,
want to go in executive session now?
I don't want to go in now. We got so much to go in the end, so we can move it in. But I like what John's saying, and you can see on the budget every year where we are to date. So you did get a copy of that.
To look at it, you have to look at that. It would be nice if it was here. Just,
We can make that for next year if that's
Yeah.
okay. That's an excellent suggestion.
Any questions right now on that?
You can see we lost some money on the Shell building, though we have a couple companies interested in doing kind of the same thing again. So we're gonna hopefully have a meeting on that shortly too, with the ledge as well.
Okay, let's digest that, and then if there's any questions in the
Well,
meantime, call Jen or.
Well, at the end of this meeting, after we talk about personnel, we'll come back out and vote on it.
Okay,
Well, no, it's something we have to turn into the county. The county asked for it
right.
first
October.
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, well, you talk about it in October, but they want it now. And the world changes in 2 months. But I understand it's we're not the only budget. You're working on a bunch of them, so it makes sense, but it's hard sometimes.
Okay. All right, item number 6 are the minutes that were sent to you, they're in your packet, July 27th, August 17th, I'm sorry, August 17th.
Yeah, those are
goes up
public
public hearing. So you want to, I need a motion to accept any changes, additions, corrections? 27th meeting, motion Scriano, second, Kate, Ricky, any discussion?
Can I say something? So we're back to doing public hearings at the sites of the community. So we did the one for Feldmeyer at the city of Little Falls at their village. So, you know, as David said, are we making the communities aware? And we are, especially now that we can do the public hearings there. So we did it right in their chambers, and the same way with the Skylar, with Nudidek. We did that one right in the Skylar Town Hall. So we let everybody know in those communities what are going on. They're each mailed everything. Myself, and for the Little Falls example, myself and Jim went and met with the mayor and talked about everything. So just so everybody knows.
Because wasn't that a concern when we gave a pilot to Mohawk Medical? After we did it, then they went and asked for a lower assessment. And so
They actually got a lower assessment ahead of time.
They did.
And he never told us any. If we're going to talk honestly, we were never notified of any of those conversations the same way this time with Feldmeyer. They were dealing with Bill Green, their codes person, and other people for about a month and a half before we had our meeting with the mayor, and he pretended like he didn't. So if you want to know the facts, that's the facts.
No, I didn't want to have a repeat of that one. That's why I asked.
That's why we invite them to things and try to talk to them, but it's not a two-way street. Correct, Mr. Bono? Correct.
Okay, minutes, anyone else on minutes? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Carried. Move to the public hearing. August 17th, do those all at once, those two? Okay. Need a motion to accept the minutes? Mike Wurdzak, second by John Scriano. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, nay? Carried. Item 7, July financial reports, they're on pages 13 and 18. Financial report, balance statement, check registers. Is there any questions? John, you want to give us a quick?
Yeah, we're still sitting good. We should be closing on Nudidek within the next few days. That'll give us some influx of financial support. There's a couple more. We'll go through each individual project later on, but right now our balances look very well. We'll be able to hit our numbers by the end of the year for sure. All of our loans are up to date. Grant process has been moving along nicely. We have a check for HBK for a CDBG grant of $171,000 sitting at the county. So those have all been flowing through nicely.
RLF status?
We can get a vote on this.
Okay. Finance, motion. Bruce?
Sure.
Thank you. Kate, thank you. Let's get a little lively here, kids.
Well,
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
aye.
Aye.
That's better.
Any opposed?
He wants us to get a little more motivated.
Carried. Okay, the RLF.
Victoria.
Victoria?
For the micro enterprise grant update, I am currently working with the most two recently approved businesses to obtain their proof of payment documents for the equipment that was outlined in their application. And I'm also continuing to work with the businesses that were approved previously to meet their job requirements, making sure that we get the required documentation to prove that they have added jobs as they should have. So there's still approximately $29,000 that was committed to GS Breast Farm and Hill Path Brewing that we are still working to be drawn down on that. But this grant does end in December of this year, so we'll have everything completed by then. We are still having ongoing conversations about reapplying for another micro enterprise grant, which we do plan to do. We just want to make sure we're pretty well set with this one before we move on to reapplying for another one.
We spent over 75% of the grant already, so that opens us up for eligibility. We've constantly stayed in touch with the state to make sure that we're in good standing. We feel very confident that we'll receive another $200,000.
Donuts are here. Thank you.
I can't believe I'm figuring that thing out.
Yeah, questions? Morning, and go right to everybody in and I'll throw away. Okay. Any questions for Victoria? All right, let's move on to micro enterprise grant update, again, Victoria.
She just said that.
Jack one. Seward, the 222 grant, Victoria again, or do you want to handle it?
Nope, the first one is Giuliano's Farm. That was approved by the board. They're asking for the full amount of $6,000 or $2,000 loan, $2,000 grant. They'll put in at least $2,000 of their own equity. This was approved by the loan and grant committee. So we just need to move ahead with it through the general committee.
Close, second by Sperano. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Any opposed, nay? Carried.
Yep, they're down in Little Falls, another big business in Little Falls. We're happy to support it again for the science. They're put in for a total project cost of $59.19, loan max $19.73, grant max $19.73, and owner's equity $19.73. This once again was approved by the board.
Motion. Mike, second by Kate. Ricky, any discussion? All in favor, aye? Opposed, nay? Carried. We'll have an update by Victoria.
So as John said, this is the gift that keeps on giving. We just continue to approve these businesses, and I have two other businesses I'm working with currently to get in their documentation as well. So we just keep moving along, approving these, and it's a wonderful thing.
And every now and then when we give one of these out, we seem to get the payments done for the loan sooner. And so that helps us get other loans and grants out quicker. So that's been good for all of us with that as well.
Item 10, Franklin 5S Business Park. There's a surface treatment we need to do on the road. And discuss that, and that's on page 30. Business. Well,
Well, it's kind of already been done.
I approve it then.
Well, good, because they own it now.
Yeah, so that was a couple of great things that happened. In order for them to take it over, we needed to like a coating on the road, which was done. We will draw this down from the county and pay this back through the PIF. So for them to do it at $17,000 was an excellent deal from what we saw, all the other quotes and everything. This is just, we want to make sure the board approves it. They voted at their last meeting to take over the property or the road.
It's been recorded. Then run that down to the county festival.
And they filled out all this, so we own nothing longer in the 5S South Business Park. They're completely gone. So we just need a motion to push this.
If we don't approve it, they'll pick it up.
motion, Ricky, second by Gorwacki. Any discussion?
I just want to say the town has been working excellent with us. We have other projects going on in the town, which we'll talk about. They're very eager to see business. When I was at the last meeting, one of their councilmen said, geez, John, every time you come, you get something. And I said, every time I come, I get y'all something. So, I mean, it's a win-win there. I wish every community worked like they did. We're just seeing some great things happening there. So.
And as far as the name was, John, and his talk to Wayne Evans from Tractor Supply Corporate, he's going to discuss the name change. We're having problems in the county as far as tractor trailers getting in neighborhoods. So they're going to maybe add a prefix to the tractor, country mile, whatever. They're going to come up with something. They're willing to work.
Well, one of my discussions with Wayne was back at corporate. They have an IT person strictly that's dealing with locations of their new retail stores as well as their warehousing. So they're now on top of it. They feel as though they want to give it a little bit of time to see if they can make sure that they, in Google, it'll only show up for them. We're not sure that'll happen, but I also made it clear to them that the town of Frankfurt owns it now and the town can change the name. So we want to work together. So Wayne was out for a week, but now he's working with them and we should have another meeting set up shortly. But it has been a burden on the communities. And Tractor actually went to a community, Wayne Evans and a group of guys with dirt, grass seed. I don't know if they fixed a mailbox or not, you know, how these legends keep growing, but they actually wanted to make some good things happen. So we're hoping to have that changed. If it has to, it'll probably be like Tractor Country Mile or something, because there's no other tractor in the community. But they're hoping they don't have to do that.
Okay. You voted, correct?
No.
Motion was made, second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Carried. Item 11, Skyler Business Park, the Delta Engineering Professional Services.
Yeah.
There is no attachment with that item.
Okay, so this one's for the Skylar, I'm sorry, Ellen. And we'll do some updates on the Skylar Park as well. So we need to increase our services with the Delta Engineering. There's some more engineering work that has to be done to help complete the project. I'm looking for an additional $50K. Once again, we draw that down through the PIF and get paid back through the pilots. So I have a meeting set up for Thursday with the county where I'm asking for an additional $1 million for infrastructure for that park. They don't know, I've already told them. And just to help support the paid back through the pilot again. So I don't anticipate any issues with the county. They've been very supportive. Mr. Wallace's team as well as the county legislators. So I'm looking for an additional, only in services, engineering services, working with us on the different bids that we have to go through for some of the additional things going on, like putting the base coat of the road. We're not blacktopping that road yet until after construction's done. We got to put in the water line. We're probably going to work with National Grid on the gas line as well. So there's some other things that they have to do. Plus in the front, they're helping us divide that up and make sure we have all the infrastructure there too. So that's one part of it.
Need a motion for 50K.
Is 50K enough, John?
But I think for right now it is. I'm happy to come back, but I like them to see that we're supporting it as a board, and then I'd like to, I make them fill out all the documentation, so we have no
Is it
issue.
set amount 50 or up to?
Up to 50 is fine.
Correct. Okay. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Brown, second. Kate? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Any opposed? Carried.
I didn't, that's handwritten on mine, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
In everybody's packet, you should have this map. It's the map of Skylar, should be towards the back.
Handout.
Oh, you're gonna hand, I'm sorry, not in everyone's packet, they have it, Victoria's just gonna hand it out. So there's been wetland issues on this property since the beginning of time. So myself and Mr. Halleck and Chris Mabey from Delta, and also Mike Emmerich, we came up with some solutions. So the map is first with Skylar Business Park 2. The yellow signifies an area that doesn't have any jurisdiction. We don't have to worry about the yellow areas. It's the blue area where you can see going up the top of our property and then off to the one side there near Wilcourt. We have already included those in everything that we've been building, so we don't need to worry about those. 2, we were a little nervous about, but it didn't connect with any waterways, so we weren't. And then also as you look to the right near the thruway, you see some wetland over there that we can develop now without any issue. So this is a great thing we got from the Corps. In fact, I got it yesterday. So this is very exciting. We've been waiting for this for a long time. In the front of the park, we've picked out They sent us a map. We could not find anything. It just felt like with COVID too, it slowed them down. They couldn't get in their office. They finally sent us a map of an area. We sent them back a map of the front of the park where we had 5 acres already established as wetland. That should meet all of their requirement. And they also considered that through our 3 acres of land that are in the first park that connect the road through, they thought there might be some additional wetland there. That does not continue anywhere. So we're gonna be able to move ahead. What we have to do with the 5.5 acres on the property in the front is put that in a conservation easement with the town, which they have no problem with.
You're talking about this?
No, that's
Was this ever gonna be developed?
never.
No, this is
Never.
a swamp.
This one, yeah. So, yeah, so the one that is in the front loop of the park that we just cleaned all out. So Tony's putting that together. That'll meet the requirements of the Corps of Engineers, and we'll finally be done with them in this park. So it's finally a great thing to be moving ahead with all of that.
That's where the arrowheads are?
No,
Swamp.
that would have got another thing for that. It was only shavings.
All right, thanks, John. Item 12, Herkimer County Food Processing Study, John.
Yeah, well, we hope to vote on this today to select our vendor, but things just got pushed out a little bit. So we're actually interviewing both, the only 2 that reply to this, a group out of Rochester and a group out of the city. The group, we have different Zoom meetings with them tomorrow to go through and interview and see how their process is. I've reached out to references for both. We have scorecards that we filled out already, and we'll make our determination and then come back and reference to the board so we can move ahead with that project. I've already talked to Cornell. We have a committee that I sit on with Mr. Poflinski over at Cornell, off of our ag. What's the name of it? The committee, can you think? Okay, never mind. Pete sits on it too, Campione. So we'll get input from them as well as Lorraine Lewandowski and probably Marty Broccoli and some other people over in Oneida County too. So this study should present itself nicely when we're all said and done on how we can best market some of these sites for additional processing.
Okay, so that's details.
That's an FYI.
All right, item 13, new to deck, the Mountain Head Group, there's an amended authorizing resolution. John, pages 31 through 40.
So that's why we had the public hearing. We did change, I think it was the amount that they were going to use for their ST60s, correct, Stace?
Sales tax.
Yep, for their sales tax. So that's all we're doing is changed it so we make it legal.
Motion. Mike, second by John Serrano. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Carried.
I've got everything I need from doing that. Just very close to look at the bank at this point. It's ready to rock and roll.
So if we can Tuesday afternoon, would be great. Then if they get back to you.
Their follow up.
But after that's fine too, but I just, the holiday coming up.
Their lenders councils would dictate it. That's ready.
So what that'll bring us at the closing for Nuda is the sale, the land, which will be able to give more money back to the county for the purchase of the land. So we'll be paying back the county money on that. Plus it'll bring in the pilot. And they've already started. We gave them an early site agreement to start clearing land over there. If you haven't been over to the properties, please drive through Skylar and take a look. It's amazing just how quickly, especially how quickly Pepsi's building. And we see that moving ahead rather fast. So Nuda or Fountainhead cleaned enough property to build a 400,000 square foot facility, but they're only starting with a 200,000.
Herkimer County Ag Council, we have to apologize, John.
That was 3 months ago.
Yeah, no.
Do you know how much we still owe the county? Do you know? Does anybody know?
For
The land purchase.
The
The land. No, that's okay. I don't want to hold up the meeting. I thought you'd have that number just like
I
a
know,
tip, but
because-
you're like a math wizard.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be entertaining you all.
You and the other math wizard.
Yeah.
You got it. You're the only one.
From,
Eric?
I think it's in the 400,000.
let's-
673, but
About three
So we're
seventy.
gonna pay down.
673. That's the end of July.
That's what we owe since the end of July. So then you're gonna tack on now what from new to deck, which will be, no, 200,000 roughly, 230. So we're down in the $400,000 range. And we'll talk more about that property too, as we move down.
item 14, Sun East Hills Solar LLC. Again, another resolution that was amended 41 to 46 pages. Any questions?
Just extending the time. We also requested from them some upfront financial support because of all the work that we've done in the office and everything that Tony's done as well, and they were agreeable. So that's where we sit with the Sun East Solar or Hills Solar Project.
Motion. Kids, thank you. David, and second, I'm sorry, any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Nay. Carried. All right, I'm sorry, Sun East Watkins Road.
That is the same thing. We asked them to support us because of the extent of how long, and they wanted to extend their resolution or their inducement.
Motion, Mike, second. John Strano, any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Carried. 13, Energy LLC, there's an application for financial assistance, page 53 and 60. John?
I'm sure you all had a chance to review this. This is another solar project that we're working on. A different company as well. We're probably entertaining right now, I'm gonna say 8 to 10 different solar projects. So this one, they're, once again, they were pushing for more of the 20-year type pilot. We didn't agree to that. This is almost a $9.5 million project. Standard, benefits of what we've given everybody else. This is located in the town of Manheim.
Discussion. Need a motion. And second by David. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Carried.
Yep. So you accepted the application.
Reimbursement. Motion. White, Franzak, second. John Strano, any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Carried. Thank you.
With all of the solar projects going on in central New York, I think when I've talked to a couple of these guys, they all seem to be working towards the same maintenance type company. So I think we're gonna see a large maintenance company grow out of these. Just because they all can't support them from where they are. And like a lot of other people that sell certain things, they'll hire out the maintenance of the computers or whatever. So I think we're gonna see a company form from that. And I told them we have space in Herkimer County if they're looking to do something.
So when one of these may be completed?
We have 2
Started.
completed already in Herkimer County.
Small, but these are big.
These are 20. Yep, that's why they've asked for extensions. Yeah, well, ClearPath just came in, Sun East and Hills and Watkins are supposed to start probably early next year. I think the one in Watkins was hoping to start sooner. But it's the process of dealing with NYSERDA and the state, not so much the locals. I think they're all set with everything there.
Item 17, Hale Manufacturing, there's a discussion on the pilot adjustment, B61. John, you want?
Sure. So I've had several meetings with Hale. Their initial pilot was a standard pilot that we had set up. But after going to meet with them, talking about their growth, they're already pretty much out of space. They've had to increase on what they were going to purchase from the beginning. They were not successful in receiving a grant from the state, a CDBG grant of $400,000 that was at no fault of theirs. We gave the state the schedule. At the 11th hour, they came back and said, no, the schedule isn't gonna work after we did everything else from the public hearings on. I approached the county for support for this in the amount of about $200,000. The county said, after Lorraine, researched it, Rodrowski, the county attorney, said she couldn't provide that. So we went back and we talked to them, and they're at this point with everything they have going on, and they have added additional people too. They are struggling. So I came and asked a few of the board members if it might be okay if we take a look, because we have not closed on this project yet, if we could change the pilot. And so in front of you is the new pilot. That will end up saving them about $129,000 over the length of the pilot.
Discussion.
What's the length of the pilot again?
10 years.
And can you just briefly go over the change from the standard to the proposed? I can see it looks like the first
Yeah, so we're gonna bring them,
years.
we're giving them a lot of relief in the first 3 years.
Okay, so
So-
yeah.
So on the property, there'll be no property tax on the first 3 years. On 4 through 6, it's 50%, then 75, and then it pays off at the end of 10 years.
So it looks like the savings is really kind of front loaded.
Yes, which helps them right now with all the things that they have to do to get up to speed.
So this helps them because of not getting the CDBG grant.
This helps.
They have no other
I'm struggling with it because I thought they got quite a bit of money from Amazon.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that they're hurt,
If you want it, well,
but I don't know that. So I shouldn't say, so disregard that comment.
genie's out of the bottle.
I mean, they have no other options with this. I mean, no place else to turn to get
No,
reduction.
no, we're working with them. They did apply to National Grid for some benefits for a reduced rate on their energy. They are reaching out to Corey's group for some other support on some things. But once again, you know, it's a small business. There's 3 owners, you know, or the father owns it, the 2 daughters work there. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. Last year, they lost one of their key employees. He passed away. So, and one of their other ones retired. So they're having some issues over there.
Will we catch any flack from other people we have pilots, whether we, you know, I mean, they find out we're able to do this?
We've done this for a lot of other companies, including Nudadeck, the expansion for Wilcor. Pepsi did not want a pilot, neither did Amazon. But as other businesses come here, that's the way that we support them to help them continue and stay here.
And they are adding jobs.
Pardon?
They are adding jobs.
Yeah, they would hire tomorrow more people if they could. They attended the fair as well, the job fair, correct?
Yeah. They were there.
So, I mean, and they're looking, they're constantly looking. They actually need more space over there as well for storage already.
Well, that's a common theme all over, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there was, at the job fair that they had the other day, 65 people showed up. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but most of these recruiters at their businesses are lucky if they get 1 or 2 chances to talk to people a week. Here, they got a chance to talk to 65. You know, it worked out really well. The Department of the DOT was there. The college had recruitment. A lot of places had recruitment. Feldmeyer, Tractor, which has no problem getting its retention, but that'll change. Pardon? Twin Rivers, yeah. So the major ones were there. Twin Rivers, another Little Falls business.
And a side note, I had asked Karen, how many people are unemployed in the county. She came up with a number for the region, Herkimer, Oneida, and Madison County. And these letters were sent out about this job for all 17,000 people that were on unemployment. And to get 65 people, looking from the outside, the employers are saying it's a great number. But looking from the outside, I'm going, 17,000 people unemployed in the area and 65 people showed up. That's discouraging to me.
Well, I think it's not, because here we are doing something that was no cost to the county, no cost to
I'm
any
not talking about
individual.
this.
And you're hiring 65 people that never would have got went to
But
those places.
65 out of 17.
But how do you get those other
To be
people?
commended.
So there's not a bad side to this. Whether everybody wants to say there's a bad side, if we don't do something to keep them coming into Herkimer County. And how can you, Madison and Oneida County is nowhere near driving.
I understand, but still, you gotta figure 20% of those people are from Herkimer County. And to be commended, I'm not taking that's great. Great that those 65 people are gonna get jobs, hopefully. But when you have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people sitting home when they had an opportunity, beautiful opportunity, it's discouraging.
What's your plan B?
Plan B.
Take money away
The
from them
money's away
September
tomorrow.
1st. So you gotta start saying that publicly. Because that's the reality. I don't care what anybody says, that's the
Instead of
reality.
giving the money to Jim Bowler to sit home, I'm just using you to talk now. Give the money to the employee. Say, here's $1,000, whatever it is. You put it out there, you're gonna pay $22 an hour now instead of $20. That way people make money, they get productive, and they're back, their businesses can make their goods and services. The way we're doing it now, it's not this board or anything like, it's just ludicrous. I'm not going to work because I can make more money sitting home. Well, if you go to the job fair and XYZ company says, I'm gonna give you $25 an hour, people are gonna get out of the house, they're gonna go to work. But no, we'd rather give it to them to stay home. Our businesses suffer because they can't produce the product. Try to get a car, see what you got. If you gotta wait months, I'm preaching. I just don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense.
I think we should support this pilot reduction. I think we should. They're a longstanding company. They chose to stay here in Herkimer County. And I support it.
Okay, need a motion?
I'm
Motion by. I just want to stay to a lot more here, but Dave made a motion.
Okay.
I need a second by Kate, so no, it's okay. John, I get it, yeah, I believe it. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Gary, we need to set the public hearing for that.
Yep.
I need a motion. Dave? Second by John. Serrano, any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed, nay. Carried. Item 18, Russell Farm, the surveying.
Yep, so we
Can I,
received,
John, just when we do something like that, which we don't do often, when does like the town or the school district hear about that? Or all right, I didn't know.
To give that notice.
All right. Okay.
and I usually talk to them too.
Okay.
The next is Emmerich's land surveying bill. It's for the things, everything we needed to do at the Russell Farm to keep that project moving forward. I didn't think it was gonna be this amount, or I would have brought it ahead further, and I thought he was gonna send in bills differently than he did, but he saved them up. So he needed a motion to support the land surveying being done at
Maybe
Russell.
next time we do it, we can have just an estimate. Something like that.
Well, the problem was as it was moving along, as we did one thing, then we had to do the wetland in order to do the SHPO, and it was too fast moving. But yeah, when we buy a next property, we'll do something different.
So ultimately, this work carries forward to just the normal due diligence associated with development.
Yep. Oh, yeah, this is nothing we wanted to.
No, I know, SHPO, that's fine, as long as you know what it is.
Well, you can see on here everything he had to do with the wetland. And
Yeah.
He's already got everything drawn up for us to run the water and sewer and submit that for the map plan.
Good job. Any more questions? Need a motion to accept? Mike, Warnzak, second. Okay, Rick, any discussion? Over aye. Any opposed, nay, carried. Item 19, the former Chips gas station. There's a opportunity there, yeah.
Yep, there are 3 properties. For those of you who don't know where this is in the town of Frankfurt between Ilion and Frankfurt. These are 3 properties that are definitely have some hair on them. There is some contamination. I talked with the town about it and working with Lorraine at the county attorney. We're looking, and Ray Johnson came up with this idea, county legislator, about how we can best take a look at some of these properties that will never be sold in REM and what we can do to help make things happen. So I approached the town and said, hey, if we clean up this property, what about making it a parking lot for the bike trail that's across the street? They're not able to park at BE Nuggets parking lot. And they thought of some other ideas, maybe pavilion or whatever, but that doesn't matter. But they were in agreement. Even if they just had, if we had to cap it after we did everything, there would never be a building put on there per se that we'd have to worry about disruption. So talking with Lorraine, we need to have rights to get onto that site. The county judge can allow us. And what we would do first is a phase 1 environmental, and then take a look at doing the phase 2. There would be cost associated with that. If the timing works out right, what we would do is a phase 1 and we would assume that cost, but the phase 2, we should be hopefully receiving our second EPA grant by then. And the only, or we can go, and even with phase 1, if we do a phase 1 and we see where the contamination lies, and we take over the property, because we're gonna have to take it over first, we can apply for an EPA cleanup grant of up to $500,000. Plus there's DEC money that's available to remove that. I haven't gone into it too much with Tony, but I plan on doing that as long as the board wanted us to proceed with this. I think this is an excellent project where we can take, and the bike path definitely contributes to tourism, which is an economic development driver. And I just think that we could have some definitely ways that we can take a look at taking over some of these brownfields in the county.
There's buried fuel tanks in there, right?
We believe that there's 4 buried, there's some were removed, but we think there's still 4 there. Now, depending upon what happens with those 4, there's different things that can be done for cleanup.
Is the taxes been paid on this property?
Only on a tiny parcel in there that has a 999 attached to it where there's a billboard, because they didn't want the billboard to be taken down.
Of course, because they're getting
But
money.
we would take over all of these properties.
And when you
What a
say
country.
take over,
We have to assume
it's going to be
ownership.
given. Obviously, I don't know who owns it.
No, what would happen is, in the in-rem process, since it was put in REM already,
Okay.
it's not in REM now, but it was put in already, and we can go back to when that started and be able to take this property over. The town, the community of the county can actually just give it to us. So, but Lorraine's looking at all that, but we don't want it until we're able to do at least a phase 1, if not a phase 2 on it.
Well, I think it's, as long as there's not a building plan to be put on it, I don't think that the dollars to clean it up would be as high, but looking at it,
It's a
dollar
small piece
signs.
of property, it's tight, so it's perfect for what they want to use it for.
Yeah. Was there a fire on this property? Do I remember?
That's all.
The one that we're
Is it
gonna take
next
that
door?
property to.
Is that vacant lot right there?
Yes.
We just like going from one environmental thing to another. don't we?
Well, this has an outcome. I mean, the town really stepped up. I think it's something that needs to happen. It's been an eyesore for decades.
It's visible property too. I mean,
Very.
Oh, yeah, I go by this every day.
They talked about.
And the brothers, those brothers were really nice guys when it was operating as a fuel station.
But it wasn't them, it was this.
That was after they sold it.
Yeah, it's a Casella who lives in New
Oh,
Jersey.
Dickie Casella's son. I think so. Rick. I think it was.
He's in jail. He's in jail.
All right, let's,
Put a taco stand down there. Yeah,
Is there any extra report on
The
that?
guy.
This just
discussion.
Any extra report on that?
Just that, I think we should have an action by the board that say, yes, proceed, and we'll have updates as we go along. I'm not saying we take it tomorrow, there's gonna be a process, but if we do take it, then we can go after that EPA cleanup money and DEC money and make it never be back on the tax rolls. I don't wanna fool anybody, but it will clean up an area, and I think it's a good pilot for us to start taking a look at other ones, that when we can do this, and then go to a community where we can actually put it back on the tax rolls after we figure out the way that we can best move ahead with this.
I don't think realistically it would ever be something that could be tax rolls.
No,
I don't see how anybody would really even have the funds around here to turn that over.
well, the thing is, if we take it over and then put it back after it's clean or wherever there's limitations to things,
Right.
So
Just need private money.
any objections going forward with this?
I think I'd like a motion from the board to move ahead.
Sure, I move.
Okay, David, second. John, okay. Any
You can
discussion?
keep seconds. If you never pick that.
It doesn't matter. I'm fine.
Just put them off. I put my-
This couldn't be a Enia funeral home parking
All in
lot.
favor, aye. Any opposed, nay, carried. Union Tool Site, what's going on there?
There's a lot going on there. So I finally received all of the information from the current owner, Ames True Timber. And there's a lot to read. I know I gave everybody a bunch of it. You don't want to, I mean, you can read it if you want. My recommendation is that we reach out to HRP, who we've been using as a consultant all along with the EPA grant, hire them on to best work this process through. There's things we have to look at when we're going to move ahead with this property, if we decide to. Right now, it can only be commercial and manufacturing, which we're fine with. We've never thought of putting residential. There's areas in there that can only be slab on grade. There's other areas that we could really investigate and move forward once we own it. It has to be monitored in perpetuity, and I've already talked to the Village of Frankfurt. They'll work out any agreement with us that they want, or that we want. So their people can go and monitor these wells every 4 to 5 years and send the data in. It's not complicated, but we just don't want that not liability, or it's not a liability. It's just, we don't have the personnel to do that. Could you see me standing over this, getting a Dixie cup full of something? It looks good to me. But I think it's, sorry. I think it's a great property. It has all the utilities, dual high-speed fiber, the low-cost power, gas, water, sewer, and I think I can get it for nothing. And I know Tony's probably thinking this has some pretty good hair on it, and probably a little nervous about it. But that,
If you read what's, their opinion on the property, there's a lot going on there.
that's why we need someone like HRP to help us through the process, because there will be things that we won't be responsible for, additional things going down the road. If we find any other things as we're doing stuff, we won't be held responsible. Ames still has to take that responsibility. This will get them, if we move ahead with this, this will get them out of that. We'll be able to market that site, which we desperately need property.
How many acres is that, Chuck?
About 26 usable. And I think that we could probably get our standard 15 to 20,000 an acre for it, especially with all the amenities there as we start to develop the property.
So you think you can get it for nothing, but what you talking to?
Oh, I've had many conversations with them. I said, if you don't donate, the first thing, well, you're gonna make millions of dollars. I said, on polluted property that I have to monitor forever. I said, I don't believe so. But if you think that's the case, then you monitor it.
So is it for sale?
It's right now, it's in discussion. So if anybody's listening, developer can't call them and try to buy it. It's not for sale that way.
Mr. Heller, would you like to issue your disclaimer?
I think Ann covered it for me. Proceed with caution.
Of course, but that's why I'd like, I had a call into Tom to see if there was like a ballpark number, but I'm thinking it's probably gonna be around 50K.
This isn't like clean farmland,
No,
So,
but you can only do commercial and manufacturing, which they have no problem with in the community because it was a foundry.
it's just the dollars getting there.
Well, but if we take it over, there'll be grant money that we definitely can go after. And we do have a good relationship with the EPA.
Yeah.
But a lot of it has been cleaned up too. If you looked at, a lot of the soil has been brought up. You know, like the idea.
I don't know, I got in I have a client that worked there and in management. It's a minefield of buried stuff that they threw everywhere. So
So they,
nervous,
so
because
they,
I think there's a lot of environmental cleanup here.
so they dug down and took off the soil and done a lot of pits all over for that testing. So what we would do with HRP is really, and there are maps in here that show hot spots too and everything else. I don't know if you had a chance to review, probably not. But right, did you get the maps or no? Oh, I'm sorry, there are no maps in there, so you haven't had a chance.
Hard to review.
I've only got the HRP letter.
Oh, okay, I'm
It
sorry.
was
I'm
too
holding
hot
back
to
from
touch.
But in the initial meetings back, a few years back, I went to the village. The DEC reps were there. EPA was there. They were all very receptive about having this back on the tax rolls, and it was a viable project. They said that, you know, you could have businesses here. Can't be a 24/7, can't be a housing, you know, project type thing like that. But you could have manufacturing, you could have retail. So they thought it was a good idea. So they weren't too concerned.
Well, they'll never tell you they're concerned about anything till after the fact, DEC.
But
EPA and DEC though will work with us just like in Dufold. When we went off property, we said we will not be held responsible for anything we find off property, and they signed off on that. They also signed off not to charge us administration fees, which we asked for and they gave us. I think the same thing can happen here because of our relationship. I'm sorry about that. So with our relationship there. When Jim mentions retail, that's really not our focus, so I don't think I'd be pushing for that unless some great project came forward that, you know, unless the Target was gonna build a store there, I don't know, but I don't see that happening. But I do see, I have talked about this property with developers, and they say when that time comes, you come see us.
So Ames owns,
Ames True Temper owns
have
it.
they done any research as how bad it?
Oh,
really
yeah,
is?
this is all their reporting that we got.
Okay.
This is everything. They hired a consultant out of California who's been doing all this.
Put dollar figure on that? And it was to always,
Well, they've already invested well over $1 million in cleanup.
So it's area.
how far along is that cleanup?
it's topical. It's like the 2 foot down at the most. They didn't do anything more than that. They got test wells in. They've used some of the material to cover for the bricks on the site. They use that for fill. And then they just put topsoil over the top, and you can do slab on grade construction.
That's what we would have to do, Jim. We would have no choice, no second story, anything. I mean, it'd be a great data center site too, but they'd have to go all one story. The deeper you go, the more trouble you're gonna have.
Footers, and that's
Why did Ames buy it and how long ago
No,
did they?
Ames bought it when it was Union Tool,
Okay,
so they own Union Tool.
There's hundreds of projects like this. in
and,
the state.
and they're paying the taxes or they?
Oh,
haven't?
yeah, oh, yeah.
They've been good.
They've been good?
They haven't
I
ran.
thought you said back taxes, that's why.
They've been a good neighbor. They could have walked away from this and not
And
cleaned
they-
it up. So
They haven't generated any revenue off of this.
Oh,
at
no,
all.
they can't. There's nothing there. to
There's not,
generate.
I know, and they've been paying taxes on it for 10 years?
say give them the
More than
opportunity.
that.
More than that?
More than 10 years have they been paying taxes?
They could have walked away. So they've been
vacant for that long. There hasn't been a building on it.
The fire was
They burned it right to the
unbelievable.
ground.
I know. So they had to dig up where those tracks were underground. That's how it got out. You know, Jim? So at each building was connected by underground tracks that were about 4 feet high, the opening. And so that's why the fire spread so quick. When the guys were welding it shut on one end, it got to all the grease, it just went.
Okay, so what type of action do we want?
I would like to hire HRP as a consultant on this, not to exceed $50,000. And for us to move ahead to look to acquiring the site,
Look to acquire.
We're not gonna-
Acquire.
No, I would not do that before I have all your approval.
Do you think Ames is interested in, they were positioning themselves to sell it or to donate it?
Ames does not have a sales arm. The only way that they keep property is to build another extension. They're not building up here anymore. They would sell or work with a broker then at that point, but it's not ready for a broker. By no means would a broker take this over right now.
One way or another, they're gonna do something. Whether they sell it to us or give it to us or sell it to somebody else, something will happen. Or they walk
I'm just
away and then
worried that we're putting good money after bad in this project. All right, it's not gonna happen. if we don't-
again, they could have walked away and just said,
Well, right,
we're moving. And
But I want to know more what you mean by good money after bad, because I think, this is just my opinion too, after working on these brownfields and meeting with a lot of people around the state and the country, this is how a lot of these get started, and what the benefit we have here, which is a huge benefit, it's a clean, not a clean slate, but it's a blank canvas right now. Doesn't mean it's clean, but there's no buildings or structures, except for
but it's big.
it's 26
I
acres.
know, it's not,
so is Dufold.
not a
Look what's
building,
happening there.
it's 20 acres.
So is Dufold. Look what's happening there.
Well,
Same,
Dufold's not 20
same
acres.
figures.
that the village would, whatever we don't, it'll be another park like what we're doing now, the village would take over. But no, I mean, your opinion, you
I'm
have
just
to,
nervous,
No,
that's
I
all.
understand.
so we haven't taken it yet. This is for us to make sure of what we're gonna do.
I'm sure more will come through as you.
As I understand it, we're getting a quote to see what would need to be done to be able to have structures on the site as far as environmental, et cetera, correct?
Not a quote, we're gonna get, we're hiring
We're actually gonna get
HRP
the study.
to gonna get them to come in and we're gonna put together a plan on how we should best move ahead if we do acquire this property.
Can they come in and do a presentation just based on what they know with DC and the mapping and testing and all that? And give us their best guess on what can be done before we go any
Well, they
further?
did write up something for us. And their best guess is that they could do commercial and manufacturing and that we could move ahead.
Bring them in so we can ask.
Well,
And
'cause-
with the pictures and everything.
Because honestly, too, it's not just, I mean, when you're saying they're taking bricks from one side, filling in another.
I didn't see that in here. I'm not sure where he got that from, because I did not see that in any.
I didn't either, so that's
So
why.
that's
it
why
was
I'm
the first time.
concerned.
Get the maps of the testing, the wells, and what's hot here, what acreage is
Right, because
worse
outside of
than
the,
or better, and because the board doesn't know what's.
albeit though, it's not, I mean, it's our, we're not here to keep our hands clean, let's just be honest. We have a mission, but also too, it's not just the environmental aspect of this. If perhaps they're using bricks to fill in parts of the property.
The bricks,
It says brick,
It says brick and crushed brick and block were moved on site.
okay, so that's
Very
not,
so
so that's
it's
not something that can, I don't think, and maybe HRP or whoever can tell us, I don't really think you can put a slab on that. I
Well,
think that's kind of
But
like
it was
fill.
acceptable fill.
Yeah, so-
DC used it as acceptable.
Right, but so that's where maybe having them come in and commenting, because I don't think that is acceptable.
well, then
Grade
you want
to
a
base.
geotech on it, that would be the next step. But we're not gonna do any of that until we know that we can move ahead with that. And from what I understood, when you say it's actual fill, it's not just throwing bricks in a hole.
There's
That's
a
why
lot of
he
different-
didn't say that they
Right.
use bricks, it's they put it in as a fill.
Because there's a lot of different fill that you
I
can
just
put
asked,
in that might or might not support a slab.
Can they come in and just give us a?
They can do whatever you want, but when do you wanna do that? That's a month away. I'd rather not wait a month. Because then we're gonna lose prime.
You wanna have a
Now you're
special
talking,
meeting?
yeah, probably. And if you can't make it, it's a zoom in type of thing.
Because it's a great property, you're right, it is, it's clear,
Any objection?
you know.
Setting up a Zoom or special meeting, just a
No, that's-
FYI, yes,
We won't be able to vote at that, so I'd like if you could vote now and then contingent on your opinion after that meeting.
Conditionally. We do additional
All right.
stuff all the time.
What's the motion?
someone please make a motion to
Hire
hire
HRP.
HRP after we have a first meeting with them, introductory meeting with them, and then consensus after that would be to hire them, so be it, we would hire. Serrano, second. Go away,
I'm gonna vote no on this project, because I just don't like it.
that's fine.
You won't come to any of the ribbon cuttings.
Any
That's
discussion?
fine. You can go, you won't even need lights, you'll be able to glow in the dark.
All in favor, aye?
They're so toxic.
Aye. Any opposed?
Whoa,
Is that in the minutes? The glow in the dark?
oh shoot, it's on camera,
There's
man.
hundreds of projects like this in the state where they've done this. So
I think it's just knowing, I think it's just having an idea and knowing the scope of what is entailed, you know. This is a great write-up, but
okay, 21, Village of
So
Downfield.
just be prepared when they come, they're, or you'll be able to ask any question you want.
Well, I'm gonna call the client, because he knows where all the bodies are buried in this thing, so
Well,
I'm just seeing what he's got to say,
Dave,
that's all.
Dave, there's hundreds of gentlemen and women that work there.
I know.
Will tell you the stories,
Right,
but in talking to EPA and the DEC, they were confident that it could be developed.
The reports on that?
Yeah. Okay, BOA for Village of Downsville. Agenda, 866, 67. Your filing, yeah.
that's why I wore this.
Not prepared again, John.
I'm not.
I haven't voted my votes are.
So, so, are we taking a break? I didn't know. Bernie's talking.
So we were commenting how cold it is in here.
Oh.
County flood.
I love how cold it is in here.
Oh, that's why
Oh,
you
yeah.
drank 30,000.
It is, better for after.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the MOU we needed to amend for our BOA for Dolgeville, because when we had our initial kickoff meeting with the state, we didn't have it set up properly that when we do pay the vendors, we will pay the vendors. Dolgeville will submit the bills with our help. When Dolgeville gets the money back, they pay us. So it's something very important that we follow that process in order to get reimbursement from the state. We've just found that out with our other DASNY money too, so it's important we have this in writing. So we need a resolution that supports that statement. So we will submit, we will receive the invoices, Dolgeville will receive the invoices, we will pay the invoices, Dolgeville will submit with our help the drawdown will come to Dolgeville and Dolgeville will pay us.
How long does this go for? What's the?
17 years, I believe, maybe 18, no, 2 years.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry. I must have missed
No,
that.
I'm only kidding. We could, we met with them, it shouldn't even take that long, we should be winding down with this by the end of next summer so they could submit it to DOS. So, we will let everybody know when a group, a large meeting is held, so if you want to attend, it's pretty neat what they do, we're very excited to work with them.
Okay, need a motion. And second. Dave, you sure you want to vote? Second by David. All in favor, aye.
I was gonna say, what happened last time you
Opposed,
voted? No,
nay.
didn't you?
I'll take your vote again today. I didn't hear anything from my board. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Carried. Item 22, housing policy handout.
So this kind of came in a little last minute, but we needed to update our UTEP for our taxing policy for market rate. Well, this is just rental. How are they doing it, Tony, with house sales? Because that's
why
what,
this is a discussion draft, because I wanted to talk about that, because we haven't had a discussion about placing new residential construction. Because that just as likely as going to require as many infrastructure. But that could be, I could work that in and identify the same areas. The question is, are we going to talk about seed or are we going to talk about demolition?
I know. I need to step out, but
no, I'm back. Pete's in there. There's a light chain to pull in case something happens in the hospital.
okay, Jan, you want to give a, what do you want to do?
Well, I think it's
Or you
important that
wanna,
we,
It's a discussion draft.
yeah, well, yeah, but we do need to move ahead with this because of the development that we have going on with market rate housing. Located where we know some of the properties are moving ahead, but we also have opportunity, market rate in Old Forge as well for this to take place. We also need to take a look at housing development, like along Canal Street in Frankfurt, where one developer will come in and build single-family homes, and we need to support that as well. They're doing it in Oneida County. I want to see how we can best do it here.
Are you referring to Oneida County, what they built, the developer from Saratoga that built those buildings?
No, that's rental. When I'm talking about Dave, near Marcy over there, they're putting in a big housing development, that's single-family home housing. And they've given them a pilot.
Tony wants to add to the conversation.
Just in paragraph 4, John, this anticipates we could add residential housing. Right? It was just crafted after the multifamily because that's what the existing had done. So it's a simple and after multifamily rental projects, we just add residential.
But I think we should do that now because we're gonna have a public hearing. We should cover all the bases. We need to set that public hearing in order to adopt this as a change from our current one. So what you're saying right now is this, what you presented to us is very similar or exactly like Oneida County's?
No, not at all. I've gone through Oneida County, and Oneida County doesn't have anything like this at this point. They're just very, very vague. As a matter of fact, their existing policies was identical to our existing policy.
Are we worried about the scoring to make sure we reach those numbers to
Well,
assist the developer?
The answer is we shouldn't be if we are front loading or attributing a heavier weight on a point system to developing housing for the workforce, because developers going to come into the community and say, I need to do this. This is my target. And maybe we're getting a letter of support, which is another criteria from an employer or the community of need. They should get those 50 points right away. And I've only elevated it 10 points above what the existing tier 1 would be. Okay. So there shouldn't be reason, but this is not meant to undermine what we've done with the other stuff. This is just to target the workforce.
It's a huge, and that's what everybody's initiative is.
Guys, give you guys a water.
There's a bottle of water right in behind you.
But the other thing I don't have is how many units does workforce need? Is it 24 units? Is it 30 units? I don't think we're talking about Charlie Gate. 12 units. It's got to be a big project. Right. So I need some criteria.
So should we digest this? I mean, we just.
That was my understanding, and hope that we would digest this and talk about it a little bit.
All right. Everybody review this next meeting, and I know kind of time frame Jen needs into this, but review it, study it. Next meeting, we'll get to the nitty gritty and tweak it if we have to. But Tony's right. I mean,
So this is being looked upon, like, I went with John up to the meeting in Old Forge for the housing. They need housing there. So, but how do you know what amount they're looking for? I guess I'm confused over it.
That's my point. What is the need?
Maybe they need 40.
I think that was it. I think it was around 30 or 40
Yeah.
units. John, Old Forge, 30, 40 units was it?
No, I think it's higher than that, depending upon how they can move the road. It could be 50 to 60.
So how do we implement that into this policy?
Well, that's
We
part of
don't
the,
know
what the
that- we don't
criteria
know
is. The
the
number of units.
criteria. I mean, we're not, this is not earmarked just for that project.
No,
No.
We're wanted for the county.
You have a range, correct? It doesn't have to be a set.
I think there ought to be a minimum.
50 to 100.
Is this maybe
30
gonna
to
be
100.
used, are you looking at this for potentially the Russell land? Is that-
Yeah, that too.
why do we have to go so high if we can fit 25 market rate apartments in a certain area in Old Forge that is in desperate need of that, or in land out in Salisbury near a lake, and they can put 25 market rate. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Why do we have to have it so high of a number?
Then go 20 to 100.
No, I don't know. I'm asking.
Great point. So let's give it a big range. And
Tony, do you have an opinion on that?
I do. And you're not gonna like it, but I disagree with that, because I think to give this kind of a workforce incentive, it has to be a higher number, 24 or 36 base units. And if I'm a developer going in, construction numbers, essentially as they are, and I don't have the data, John.
I know what you're saying.
I don't think that number of units is gonna cut it. I think
No,
it's
it
gonna
might
be
not
a-
justify. You're right. You're completely
30 plus.
Yeah, they might want to do a dozen. Is that what
I
you're
think
saying?
you look at 24, 36 as a base.
I like 24. I mean, I'm not a contractor that can build those. And have you done any housing? Do you think 24 is too small?
Depending on where it is, you know. I don't think 24 is too small, but obviously they're not gonna wanna do just 12. There's definitely a baseline.
Well, they might want to do 12, but we might not.
Well, they might
not
do
be
it in
beneficial.
phases. They might do it in
But
phases,
that's something that I have an issue with, because when you, under a policy like this, when you're given that opportunity to do it in phases with granted the incentive,
Yeah.
that second phase may not come, yet we front loaded the incentive, so that's a
I
Yeah,
agree.
that's
risk.
Yeah, it is.
But I think I think a 12 unit might not be justified for housing for industry. Where if you're coming in and doing a 24, you're definitely targeting what that is there and that need for this, employee-based housing, this workforce housing.
You're talking duplex type housing, 24 plus. It's a good number, I think. I mean,
Or like if we take it and do it towards individual housing, more than 24 can fit along Canal Street. Nice houses.
What does a conflict like Hulk up there? How many units?
50, 60 units, that's there. I mean, that's one unit, I think, there's one.
I think we cover it with this.
More housing.
Yeah.
Which are entitled to this.
And then, yeah,
Similar.
If everybody wants to digest this for 7 days, email other comments about the second draft. Right back out. If everybody has a special meeting, pick it up then and
All right.
move it.
All right, chew on it.
I mean, I'm not trying to slow it down. I just want to, make sure we get it.
I do like
get it
that
right.
number 12, and I do think that would fit in. I think more of the other the places we're looking at right now would be higher, but I think if we did have 24, I think that would cover it. But where would, the rural areas, it'll be, let me say rural, but like some of the surrounding areas, not the city, it would be tough in Little Falls, for example, him to put 24 units up there. You wouldn't get the support, whereas in some of these ones off of Route 5 or 5S, to put in that amount of units, you probably could get that business there. You could get those housing, right? What do you think?
I think, the economy of scale for these developers, they buy in bulk and, 20 to 24 is do, they don't want to do it. They don't want to do anything less than.
Yeah,
X
they
amount.
won't make money.
They won't make money. They won't make money. So it's gotta be up there. Okay, digest it, talk about it,
Email me your comments.
7 days.
And we'll turn it around.
You can actually send them here if you want.
Send it to John so he can.
Cross out.
He can mark them up.
what I don't want to
Give you what he wants to see.
Item 23.
So you're making a note when we have our special meeting, but we can't vote on Zoom right now. It's passed
So long as you have a quorum
here
and
for that presentation. Okay.
we'll make sure we have a quorum. And do it a day when we have at least 4 members.
And HRP's presentation shouldn't take longer than an hour, I would assume. But if there's any upfront questions.
we can have it Saturday mornings, we can all be here.
I'm kidding. It's in Sackett's Harbor.
23 HM co-op and.
So it's been brought to my attention from a couple of sources. And I just wanted to get out there on I guess it's perception. And I'd like to just keep it as perception. The day that we closed on the property, we had to invite Mr. Flansburgh back to sign some additional documents. Totally my fault. I didn't print out everything I was supposed to. It slipped through. He came back in. When he walked back in, I gave him a screw bit. It's about this big, but it actually wasn't in this case. I kept one just in case. And I handed it to him and said, hey, we don't have any keys. We never had keys. This is how I'm getting in and out. We can't use the normal fill-ups because it'll strip it. We did this for kids. Then I proceeded to tell him, be careful in there, wear a mask, wear gloves, don't rub your hands on the walls, don't wear those shoes back in your house. After I gave him the normal spiel I talked before any brownfield development. After that meeting, he proceeded to tell some other people, I don't know exactly who they are, and different people in here have heard it, that I threw this at him, I threw a screwdriver at him and said some other things, which is completely untrue. Stacy and Victoria were there. If they saw something, I feel free to speak up. But I was nothing but thankful that he took it over and worried as I would be about anybody going in those buildings. Don't bring a ton of people. There's the red X on there. Don't do this, and I wasn't anyway. But I just want people to know that we never had keys. We never would have gave them keys. Jim, did we ever have keys?
I don't remember of any.
No keys. And so what we did is we went around with a special bit. That was his idea. And I thought it was a great idea. And sealed up the building because we didn't want anybody just using a regular screwdriver. So I'm not looking to do anything more than just tell the story the way it actually happened. We need to all stand as a board. I can't take offense to anybody if he left here with a different impression, that's his problem, not mine. But I want people to know of what happened that day and just to move forward. And I've told their developer, I've told the mayor, when they start looking at anything, to come see us, and we're more than happy to help. So I don't know what further we can do. I know Mr. Butler might not like that, but I don't have a problem with helping out. No, I have no problem with that. We tried to do a bowl with them. We know how that ended up, but that doesn't mean next year we can't. So I just wanted you to see, this is not a screwdriver. And if I threw it to him, we never would have found it, because it wasn't in this. It's this tiny little black, small bit.
John, he said a while back, I don't even know, but he had already been in there. The map was, how did he get in?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
I can't imagine it would have been that difficult to get in.
No.
Mr. Stevens, to John's comments, Mr. Carroll made it thought it was under breath. I think a lot of us heard it. Well, Stanfield's got the keys. We can get in. So they had me to get in. You know, you did it. Pretty sure they did. So it is what it is.
Okay.
But I want everyone to be aware of that. We never had keys. So if anybody's asked by anybody else in the community, and none of that happened. I wasn't here by myself. Victoria and Stacy were there. If they want to comment, they can, or if you want to ask them individually. Well, I'm only for the betterment of what we can do to move this forward. I'm not going to go anywhere else. I just want to let the board know how it actually happened, because
Perceptions are like opinions. Goes down, so. Moving forward.
if I was alone, I would agree. I wasn't alone.
Good, okay, we'll go to comments by elected officials on the phone. Is anyone's on?
They just say their phone number, so I can't tell.
Okay, is somebody been smalling out? Button shot? Oberrocker? Miller? Trump. Okay. Locals, legislators? Former legislators? Okay, updates, let's go.
Okay, we already did the Skylar Business Park wetland. Don't forget, we have the Mohawk Valley Brownfield Summit, the 6th and the 7th, down in Johnstown. It's a day we're bringing in developers from all over the Northeast. We'll be showcasing some of our properties. We are looking for a marketing and communication specialist, if anybody knows anybody. We did put it on Indeed. We advertised at Utica College. We've done some other advertising, trying to get that position filled. We might have to, we're going to talk to everybody and then come back to the board. EDC in Cooperstown is September 28th, 29th, and 30th. That's our yearly conference. One of the days, half the day is golf or go to our winery. I won't be attending any of that, but I will go for a few of the conferences. I think some of the presentations are well worthwhile. We're expected to get the broadband info back on 9/17. That's when everything will be completed, the surveys, all of the mapping. So that'll let us start going after some additional grant funding for broadband throughout the county. We do have an EPA grant with dual fold that we're working through with the village. That process has been better than we've ever done with any of them before. They're giving us sheets that help us calculate their losses, what they expect to put into it, their pro forma. I mean, it is quite a unique process made by another brownfield developer out of the state, but working with the EPA. So we're happy to get that in. We're having another closeout meeting, I think the next one or the one after. And so now we'll have some data that'll help us not only with the dual fold property, but with other ones too throughout our district or our county. We also heard back on our big lawsuit with Unisys on the dual fold property. They came back and said that they wanted to know more about Haynes and dual fold, and we sent back, no, there was only cutting and sewing there. They were hoping there was dyeing going on, but there wasn't. And so we're very confident in that. I mean, we got a quick response, which is unique, but I think they're interested in helping the community too. So, and they actually not lost, but volunteered to help support a project another Sperry site out in Tonawanda. So I think that's to our favor too.
Town of Wanda.
Exactly.
So with Wolfhold John, we're,
Yeah.
although that has been sold, we're still working.
Yeah,
On
because
that
the
to
due
further it?
diligence isn't done yet. So we're in conjunction. I'm a sales guy. Until I actually got that dollar and I turned over the keys, it isn't sold in my book. So I want to make sure. And then whatever we get as cleanup fee will be for outside anyways for this, whether they take the 2 or 3 inches off the top or whatever they do. Yeah, also there's a form. Did you pass those out yet? Okay, you have that all in your packet. So I'm gonna do a presentation. I have to meet in front of the ledge on Thursday. One of my, my topics will be this form. We are running out of land. We want them all to, help, let us know what properties they might think. Doesn't matter if it's valid or not. We'll talk to anybody, but it's got on there like relationships. So if you know a farmer and you want to introduce us just to talk, that's great. It's always better going in with that introduction or any property owner. So we want to work with the ledge to make sure we're buying the next property that they all want to see as well. And does anybody have questions on that?
Is it just vacant land or is it
It could be anything.
anything?
Yeah, anything I'm gonna tell them, really, because I can see some promise there. You know, I don't know everywhere in the county, you know, and it'd be great if somebody came forward, you know, like, we want to, I have a meeting set up with the guy who owns the Ford site, you know, what can we do there? Up in Newport, on the other side of the creek. It's a big old factory, board and milk was processed, or I don't know if it's milk or what was it, milk or cheese? Ice cream. Oh, see, I didn't even know what was that thing there. So.
And yes, was in there for a number of years.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, there is. That
Yeah.
is,
then the Times Telegram, hopefully you all had this chance to see that article. It outlined a lot of things that are happening here, including that brownfield conference we're having.
Good job, Anna.
We're very excited to get that out of them and to let people know. Amazon is still on track for November. I've been talking to a couple of their developers that are working on that project. So I think that's it.
Where you're being audited.
Oh, yeah, the auditor. Yeah, we are being audited. It's quite interesting, the process. They've only talked to me once. They've talked to Stacy and Victoria quite a few times. It's interesting. You know, I'm not anticipating we'll have A++ on our report card. There's been things done in the past, but we're only going to clean them up. They're very eager to teach us. We won't lose our IDA license or anything like that. So, but it's they've been here a lot. When they come, they're usually, I think he's in our office now. There's usually 2, one's on vacation. And they spend all day here, go through different files and reports.
Did we let you know what the scope of the audit is yet? Scope? What do they audit?
They
They
seem
audit
to be
Policy.
reviewing anything and
Yeah.
everything, so.
Even,
talked
I
about
We
it.
met with them, what, last week?
think it's longer, 10 times flying.
Policies, procedures.
Yeah, the whole, even payroll.
Sandwiches in the drawer.
Sandwiches in the drawer, water in the fridge. There, yeah, the bourbon under my desk. Told them it was there if they had stress the whole day.
Okay.
So,
Motion to,
yes.
motion to go in executive
The
session.
next meeting date?
Oh, the next meeting date.
Troy's running the meeting now.
Very good day.
It does, I got big breath. He's opening it up, so.
We need to go in executive session. Guys, you can stay for part of it if you want.
So the next meeting is Thursday,
talking
is
lunch,
September
too?
23rd, a different date, just so you all know.
On Thursday?
Yes. September 23rd.
We can go, you said? You said, so we had the option of staying or going?
Well, for part of it, they can stay. Bernie, you're gonna have to leave. You might have to leave.
Just curious, why?
No, I think they would leave.
Because that